What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. Give you guys a very, very brief overview of next week as we have important earnings coming out, not to mention big data, and what's happening with news involving NIO as we're starting to see some news involving politics and such. But let me just mention I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, deposit $100, you're guaranteed 7 free stocks. The offer ends very soon, in just about 4 days from now. Anyways, for NIO has a nice looking bearish divergence that developed right here once you guys see our MACD. And on top of this, we've been seeing a little downtrend being respected. Now, NIO loves this, 4.75 to 4.8 area. It's trying to base around there. And if we end up losing that, there's going to be a risk of it dipping all the way down to this gap support at 4.4. If we do lose that, then we have this gap to fill, which could still be a possibility for NIO since the share price is still kind of showing weakness. We're only up about 0.6% for the day, and there's not really a whole lot else going on. So we'll see how NIO ends up developing from here. But moving forward, I do want to note that there is potential for this stock to get a big bounce in June, as we have not only NIO's deliveries coming out, but also NIO's earnings report. So we'll see how that ends up affecting the share price. So there could be a temporary move in this area right here, even some downside potential for NIO, but I do believe that the share price has potential to bounce. Potential to bounce anyways. Looking at more data, the market's going to be closed on Monday here in the USA because Monday is Memorial Day. It's a holiday in the US, so there's no trading. But on Tuesday here in the US, markets will open again. And we have a messenger from the Fed giving a speech, not to mention more data from these Fed speakers. Moving forward, we also have the Fed Beige Book coming out for Wednesday. For Thursday, we have basically the GDP numbers coming out and very, very minor pieces of data. And then finally, for Friday, that's when we have the PCE data reports. That is going to be very important and cause a very, very big move. So we'll see what that causes. I'll be very, very open minded nonetheless, just to see how things go. Looking at more earnings that are coming out on Tuesday before the market opens, we have Futu and a few others. And besides that, we have very, very minor ones at least throughout the days. We do have a lot of retail coming out. We have Chewy, Dick's Sporting Goods, and the list goes on. Then for Thursday, we have Kohl's and Costco and Dell also announcing their earnings. So I can't wait to see what happens, at least by Thursday. But other than that, the earnings are relatively minor. For NIO, I just want to make it very clear that on May 23rd, the largest NIO house in Europe, NIO House Amsterdam, is officially opened. And the chairman and CEO, William Lee Bin, was there just to talk a lot about it. He warned that we should not use EVs as a political target amidst the EU expansion. And we know that politics are still getting in the way because a lot of people have a lot to say. So that's something else that's worth noting. A lot of people are just getting very, very political with all this stuff, saying lots of things about how, politics is very important, this and that. Tariffs are going to be increased. NIO is trying to continue to grow despite the European tariff talk. That's why the share price dropped quite a bit yesterday. So we'll see how things end up going moving forward. But that's something else that's worth noting. On top of all of this, it's also very important to note that NIO is in a very, very critical place amidst all this political drama. But they're going to try their best to remain unbiased and try to expand moving forward. I am sure that Europe is going to be a great market for them, but I really hope that the full extent of the tariffs are not too extreme. JP Morgan also upgraded NIO to a neutral rating, which is not bad whatsoever. When it comes to other pieces of data, the price price ratio is dipping just a little bit, still holding up relatively well nonetheless. But with it dipping like this kind of like suggests that there is a somewhat amount of weakness, at least on the chart. Moving forward, moving forward, we also have important data worth looking at. June has a tendency of being green about 47% of the time for the stocks, nothing too crazy. And there's not really a whole lot else going on. Tuesdays and Wednesdays do tend to be better days for the markets. And also for NIO, we do have a tendency of seeing decent volume. The volume is kind of dipping a little bit, but it's not the worst. So what do I see for this moving forward, in my personal opinion? Honestly, guys, I think NIO's in a very, very tight area where it's kind of shuffling. There could be a risk of downside for it. It might try to rebound first and maybe see a move back down. Might try to push back up to $5. And I do think we could be making our way back down to 4.8. I'm eyeing this gap all the way down here. So it depends on if it can hold 4.8 to 4.75 or not. Look for a little rebound and then move back down. And we'll see if we end up losing support. Now, right now, the next week doesn't really matter as much. We do have quite a bit of data coming out for the broader markets, but for NIO, it doesn't matter as much because what's going to affect this a lot more is going to be their earnings, firstly, not to mention the very important deliveries report for June. So that's going to be the key catalyst, and we'll have to see how things go. For more tickers, real quick, for SPY, we had a very, very interesting close. And now we had this kind of like bearish engulfing candlestick that formed yesterday, but now SPY is trying to rebound a bit. The question is, are we going to push this imbalance up here at 531 and then get a rejection and actually sink just a little bit more before we try to bounce, or are we about to do the opposite? I'll be watching. The trend on SPY is still bullish, though. Do not forget that. So even if we do kind of pop here, regardless if we drop or not, there's still going to likely be more upside coming later on. If we break the all-time high, we could continue higher towards 535 or higher. And if we fail to do so, it is what it is. We just have to try to be open-minded about that. We have this nice gap to fill all the way down here. I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of like pop a little bit higher towards this imbalance, and then we end up dipping lower, if anything. If that ends up being the case, if we make a lower high here, we could come down to fill the gap one more time before we see a much bigger bounce. So watch for that very carefully on SPY. But overall, the trend is still bullish. Do not forget about that. It's going to likely try to continue a little bit higher, but make sure you watch and see that gap below at 523. Will we establish a lower high and come down one more time and then try to get a bounce? Or will that not be the case? I'll be very, very patient to just wait and see. But watch and see a little push and see if we could break the high or not. If we fail to do so, there could be a little rejection, one more move down before we try to bounce. So that is a strong possibility. For Nvidia, we look very bullish. I think that there's no sign of this stopping, and we're likely going to go all the way up to about 1100. I do anticipate that as Nvidia, is breaking new all-time highs again. Bitcoin is also trying to bounce right here. We could retest our 20 EMA, 68,500, but once we break that, look for an imbalance fill all the way back up to about 70,000. For Tesla, we're also looking more bullish, breaking out and trying to test 80's resistance. Tesla's been range bound between 80 and about 72 for the last week and a half. So despite that, we're actually holding up very well, and we have a very nice looking inverse head and shoulders forming. So I do think Tesla's going to get a break to the upside later on in June. For next week, though, watch that test of 80. Watch and see if Tesla continues to shuffle in the range for now before we get a breakout. But I do believe that there's going to be a nice move to the upside, at least for the month of June. For the QQQ, we're still bullish overall as long as we're above 450. We're still holding up and favoring the bulls. Now, if we establish a lower high here, it is possible we get a little dip first before we try to continue higher. That's still a possibility, but overall, it's going to likely hold up well. I still want to note that the dips are going to likely be more buying opportunities, and the market's going to likely continue to rally. So we have to give the market some time and see how things go. Apple's also pushing up and holding up nicely. It could continue to rally to new highs from this push over here. It's going to likely try to retest about 192 next week, and we'll see if it breaks or not. But overall, there is more upside potential, and I could see it try to make its way up to this high at 196 later on. So look for a little dip on Apple before it tries to continue higher. So far, the market remains bullish, and there's no sign of us breaking the trend. So we'll be very patient. Until then, guys, I just want to thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys very soon. I'll try to maybe post over the weekend, maybe not tomorrow, but possibly on Sunday or Monday. For Monday, for sure. Not too sure about Sunday, maybe Sunday, but I will be away for tomorrow, so you won't see me tomorrow. So we'll see how things go. Let me just note that I'm still optimistic, at least for the long term, and we have a long weekend coming up, so please enjoy what the weekend has to offer. I'll see you guys again on either Sunday or Monday, but until then, thank you for listening, guys. Have a great day, and peace.